6 o'clock straight up right here. It's the Wheelhouse on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 for one more hour. It's my first show back since we were in Vegas Thursday and Friday last week doing the show at Circa Resort and Casino. Big thank you again to Derek Stevens and the team over at Circa for having us. We had an absolute blast, and we look forward to going back to our second home, as Derek Stevens said on with us on Friday. The Astros season gets underway on Thursday, opening night, Minute Maid Park. Tonight, the Astros will actually be playing the Space Cowboys for the second game in a row. Last night, they beat the Space Cowboys 3-1. Tonight, they play one last time. Final tune-up game before the Astros get set for opening day on Thursday. And BK, you were on to something. Do we have, perhaps, the first beef between the manager and the general manager of the world champion Houston Astros?
Yeah, this is interesting. So these audio clips that we're about to play come from yesterday. Before that Astros Space Cowboys game, Dusty Baker was made available to local media, as was Dana Brown. And both guys were asked about Jose Altuve and what the Astros' plan is in the foreseeable future while Jose Altuve is out. We'll start with Dusty Baker. We've got the question and the answer here. Dusty Baker was asked who's in the mix to fill in for Altuve, and here's what the skip ultimately said.
Are Dubon and Hensley still in the mix for that second baseman?
Oh, yeah.
Depending on the day?
Yeah, it depends. And Bannon's still on the mix, too. I mean, everybody here is still on the mix, so I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of help from everybody to try to help me fill that spot, but we might go outside the organization. I mean, there's a lot at stake and a lot at hand. We want to get off to a decent start and field the best team that we have available to us.
So the end of that cut is the part that caught my attention, where Dusty Baker said we might go outside the organization to replace Jose Altuve, because David Hensley and Mauricio Dubon, we've talked about those guys since Altuve broke his thumb in the World Baseball Classic. We figured, all right, that's your rotation at second base for the time being, and the Astros will hope that that combination can perform well enough to where the Astros stay afloat, and look, the rest of the guys, it's a very talented roster, the rest of the guys are able to carry the weight while Altuve is on the shelf. So that was Dusty Baker, and once again, that was interesting because it felt like, all right, they're going to stay in-house to replace Jose Altuve. Well, once again, from yesterday, here is Dana Brown, the general manager, being asked about replacing Jose Altuve for the next couple of months, and here's what the new GM had to say.
Initially, we're going to let our guys play a little bit. I think we have some internal candidates that we're excited about, and we're going to watch them play. Oftentimes, when you go outside the organization, you're in a position where you got to give up prospects. And of course, no matter who you get, when Altuve comes back, he's playing, right? So we just have to be careful in that area. We have engaged outside the organization, but right now we're very comfortable with what we have in the organization as we continue to talk to other teams.
I mean, forget the same day. Those answers came within 30 minutes of one another, where Dusty Baker is like, yeah, going outside the organization is an option. And Dana Brown basically made it sound like that, no, we checked, but we're comfortable with the guys that we have right now. This was obviously an issue between the last general manager, James Click, and Dusty Baker. It's a big part of why James Click is no longer here right now. Guys, this is the first really public incident where we have general manager and manager disagreeing. And the fact that it happened on the same day within the same hour is very eyebrow-raising to me, and it's not really something that I wanted to hear.
Dana Brown can say whatever he wants because he's here longer than Dusty Baker. That's where I fall on this.
Is he?
Yes. Yes, Dana Brown will be here longer than Dusty Baker.
I thought that about James Click.
But see, I didn't think that about James Click.
Okay.
Because it never really felt like James Click had true control of the situation. It didn't feel like he and Jim Crane ever really got totally on the same page. You heard some of the rumors about the moves that were or weren't made. Crane was ready to spend money. Click didn't want to spend money. Different schools. The Rays had been successful-ish. The Braves far more successful in recent years than the Rays when James Click left them. And Dana Brown's got some cachet. And if Dana Brown doesn't want to trade prospects to go get a second baseman, which, by the way, not only will you have to figure out what you'd have to do from a trade perspective or assigning a guy, you'd have to move somebody off the 40-man roster to make it happen. So you're losing, or at the risk of losing a guy, you're exposing a guy to the rest of the league. that you might like because you thought of him as one of the 40 best players in your organization. You want to protect him from other teams. And his point about, hey, the guy is going back to the bench when Altuve's ready.
Yeah.
So going outside the organization, like Dusty said this thing a couple weeks ago about the starters when Lance got hurt. Yeah, I kind of wish we had another starter. I was pushing for another starter.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I had another option here, maybe from outside the organization. Second base. I think Dusty just wants to make sure he covers all his bases.
For a guy who has a roster that any manager would kill to have, he sure does complain a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he does. It feels like every move Dusty wants to make, he wants those players, but also doesn't want to give up anybody either. That just kind of feels like the way he operates.
He also
that can't happen.
You're right. And he also does this thing where he clearly has influence over decisions that are made, but then tries to backtrack and make it seem like he has nothing to do with the moves. And it's the front office, when it's like, we know for a fact, it's been out there, you were heavily involved in personnel moves last year, and there's a reason why James Click is no longer employed.
Yeah, he's playing victim sometimes when he gets criticized. Yeah, look, for the record, I'm Team Dana Brown on this one. Like I want the Astros to at least try this platoon of Mauricio Dubon and David Hensley at second base, because Dana Brown's absolutely right. As soon as Jose Altuve comes back, he's getting that job back. I've never heard of an early season rental. That doesn't happen in baseball. Why would you give up anything of value to bring in a player for the first 2 months of the season? Obviously, if you're doing it at the trade deadline for the postseason push, boom, it makes sense. But I'm not giving up stuff for a guy who is going to sit on the bench for the majority of the season once Jose Altuve comes back. There's enough other guys on this roster to where I don't think the Astros are going to be sub 500 when Altuve comes back. I think these guys are going to be fine holding it down while Altuve is gone. I'm not comfortable giving stuff up for an average player who's not going to play for the majority of the year.
And if a guy's a free agent still at this point in the season, he's a free agent for a very clear and very obvious reason, which is he's probably not a very good baseball player anymore.
Yeah.
So
And it's too early to make a trade. Like, no one's giving up on their season before the season even begins.
you know who wanted them to go make a trade? Come on, you guys know who I'm about to say.
Do they work at this radio station?
They work at this radio station.
Do they host the show from noon to 3?
They host the show from noon to 3.
Are his initials JB?
His initials are JB. You didn't get any more specific with that question.
You got a 50% chance of being right here, Jake. Who's it going to be?
Is it not Joel Blank? It's Jeremy Branham.
Jeremy Branham. He was advocating for Keston Hiura.
Hira?
Mm-hmm. He was advocating for him to be picked up by the Astros.
Is he a free agent?
He was DFA'd by the Brewers. So you could go select him off of waivers, I guess. And this is a guy that came up as a highly touted prospect playing second base and ultimately played first base a lot for the Brewers.
A couple of good years, if I remember. At least one good year.
Hit 226 last year, 14 home runs in 80 games. So a little pop. You could easily bench him. He has a little backup first base, I suppose, potential. But I'm not handing the second base job to a first baseman that converted to second base to first base. And
I'd rather give David Hensley the opportunity once again. Now, I'd rather go with Keston Hiura than make a trade for anybody right now. And I think Jeremy Branham's in the same boat because I remember him talking about not wanting to trade anybody for a 2-month rental to replace Jose Altuve for the time being. So there are avenues that I would go by, but I like David Hensley. I liked what I saw from him at the end of last season. I'm comfortable with giving him a go here.
What is wrong with David Hensley that he's not just the everyday second baseman until Altuve's back? The guy hit 300 at AAA last year. He came up to the big league club, hit well in the regular season, had some impressive at-bats in the postseason. Like, how is he not the everyday second baseman until Altuve's back? I don't understand it. Mauricio Dubon can't hit his body weight.
Dusty loves him.
I don't know. I don't get it.
And like Jake said, Dusty's got some sway within this organization. So
he does.
He's the guy who fills out the lineup card. He's going to keep putting Dubon's name on there.
I'm not silly enough to sit here and tell you that I think David Hensley's going to hit 300 in the big leagues, but he's going to hit better than Mauricio Dubon.
Yeah.
You're just going to put two black holes at the back of the lineup? Well, Chaz McCormick's going to lead off the third inning, and then there's going to be 2 automatic outs after that with Mauricio Dubon and Martin Maldonado.
Big Art texted in. This is actually an interesting thought here. Dana Brown just reminded everyone that Dusty isn't his guy and eventually will get his hand-picked manager.
That's probably the case, not because they don't get along, because Dusty's old as dirt.
He's actually older than some dirt.
You're probably right. That was relatively mean. Sorry about that, Skip. But, yeah, at some point, I mean, Dusty keeps signing these one-year deals. You think at some point his last one-year contract is coming up. Exactly, exactly.
Is this his last year?
I don't know. I mean, there was a thought that he was going to ride off into the sunset when the Astros won the World Series.
Yeah, but within 5 minutes after they won the World Series, he's like, you know what's better than winning once? Winning twice.
If they win again, I believe he's leaving. I believe he rides off in the sunset, back-to-back World Series champions.
You know what's better than winning twice? Winning thrice.
Winning thrice.
Those are the rules, man.
It'd be hilarious if Dusty said three-peat and Pat Riley sued him. It's like, I got you, Dusty.
You know what's better than three-peat? Three meat. Saw that in a Subway commercial once. Steph Curry told me that.
Do they lie about the prices for that one, too?
They probably do.
You know you can have it your way there.
There you go. It's a bad look. It's just unnecessary. It's not a big deal. And I don't expect the Dana-Dusty relationship to ultimately go down the way James Click and Dusty did, but it's just, you want to get your message straight. It looks pretty silly. This organization is so well run. They've had so much success, and they're just little things like this. It's mainly the injuries, right? That's what we talk about. That's what frustrates us the most, is that they can't seem to figure out injury timelines for anybody, and they just repeatedly lie or just don't have the right information that they need to have when it comes to these players and their health. That's an issue. And then this type of stuff, too, where it's just, why are you guys not on the same page? I'm not saying they should all agree all of the time, but when you've got a bunch of microphones and cameras put into one guy's face, you would think that his messaging is relatively similar than the other guy who's going to talk 30 minutes after that. So hopefully this is not the start of a trend that repeats some sort of history with the Astros. I don't think it will be.
Hey, everyone. Big thanks for watching this clip from our radio show, and thank you for making the Wheelhouse the most viewed Houston sports show on YouTube. If you like our show, then make sure you subscribe to my channel for daily clips from the show. And of course, you can listen to all 4 hours of the Wheelhouse each and every day on ESPN 97.5 FM or 92.5 FM from 3 to 7 every afternoon.